Welcome, and we're recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. You're here for the Multifamily Energy Reporting and Tenant Notice Policy public meeting. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just going to have a couple of minutes here waiting to make sure everybody is in before we start. But just a couple of housekeeping things. If you would please rename yourselves in Zoom with your full name and your organization or the community that you are here speaking on behalf of. And in case you are wondering how to do that, there's a button with 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of your picture, actually anybody's picture, and then you can scroll down and choose rename. So just asking everybody to put in their full name and their organization or affiliation, or who they're here speaking on behalf of. So we'll just wait another minute or two until make sure any latecomers don't arrive after we've already started. So if you're just coming in, welcome. This is a 1-hour public meeting on the Multifamily Energy Reporting and Tenant Notice Policy. And at some point after we start, I think we'll probably just call it the Multifamily Energy or MF Energy Policy so that we're not here all night long. So we've got 21 folks here. I think we had a few more registered. So let's, Vin and Andrea, if you're okay, let's give it another minute before we kick off. Something else to let you all know is that we're going to be using the chat feature tonight for your questions. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows how to find that. You have a menu bar at the bottom of Zoom, and one of those buttons says chat on it. So if you want to go ahead and open up the chat feature, that would be great. And you should, in the chat feature, see the option at the very top of a long list of everybody in the meeting that says everyone. And so when you're posing a question, we'd like to ask you to please make sure that you choose everyone so that your hosts and co-hosts here with the city can see it and then can voice that question and make sure it gets asked. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Vin, Andrea, are you good getting started? Okay, fantastic. Well, once again, welcome and thank you all for coming here after what I'm sure was already a long and eventful day for all of you. So this is a 1-hour meeting. We'll be here until 7 o'clock on the new proposed multifamily energy reporting and tenant notice policy, or the MF Energy Policy. And to start off the meeting, I would like to ask the city staff who are here to present to you and answer your questions to introduce themselves. So I guess, can we start, Vin, with you and then go to Eli?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Vin Mason, and I work for the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability as a Senior Climate Policy Advisor. And I'll pass it to Eli.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eli Bonilla, they, them, and I'm the communication strategist for the BPS climate team. And tonight I'll be helping field some of your questions from the chat with our staff. Michelle.
Thank you, Eli. I'm Michelle DePass. I use she, her pronouns, and I also work for BPS on the climate team. I'm here tonight to take your questions from the chat. And I'll pass it to Wing.
Hi, everyone. Wing Grabowski, he, they. I'm supporting in the background. If anyone has technical difficulties in this meeting, you can direct message me and I'll try to sort them out.
Thanks,
And
Andrea.
Hi, everyone. Andrea Jacob. I use she, her. I'm the manager of the climate program at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I'm really grateful for your time here tonight. I know we're all really busy and it's actually sunny out. So we're going to make good use of your hour. And I just want to connect this work a little bit to our climate emergency work plan. So that is the city's current climate action plan. It's posted on our website. And the work we're going to talk about tonight really maps to the first action that you see in the building section. So item B1 in our climate emergency work plan. And with that, I think I turn it back over to Marty.
Yep. Thanks, Andrea. So I just want to give everyone a little overview of what we have in store for the next hour. We are going to start with a focus on the energy reporting requirements of the policy. So we'll have a short PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll have time for Q&A. Then we'll move on, kind of do the same format over again, but this time we're going to focus on the tenant notice requirements. So then a short presentation followed by a Q&A. So I'd like to invite you, as I mentioned earlier, if you have been on since 6, we're going to use the chat feature for the questions and answers. So you are welcome to pose questions in the chat at any point. You do not need to wait until the designated Q&A period. And we have Eli and Michelle monitoring those questions. So when it comes time for the Q&A, Eli and Michelle are going to pose your questions from the chat. So you're welcome to start putting questions in now if you have them at any point during the presentations and again during the Q&A. But let me make an important distinction between the questions that you pose during this meeting versus any official comments that you want to make on the policy. So whatever you put in the chat today is really what the city staff are going to be responding to in this meeting. If you want to make an official comment on the policy, you will need to do that in a different way. So I'm sticking into the chat right now a link to the MAP app. So this link pulls up a web page that has a button on the right-hand side that says comment, and this is how you make official comments on the policy. So just to reiterate, the things that you put in the chat basically stay within this meeting. They will not become official comments on the policy. Okay, you met Wing earlier. Wing is the person you direct message if you have any technical problems. And so I would just like to reiterate, thank you for being here. And let's turn the floor over to Wing to start with the first presentation on the energy reporting requirements. Sorry, Vin.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let me get started here. How does that look, Marty?
Absolutely perfect.
All right. All right. Well, hello again, everyone. I'm Vin Mason. I noted that I'm Senior Climate Policy Advisor here at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I use he, him pronouns. I've been working for the city and this bureau since 2007 on building decarbonization, and I am the lead on this policy proposal. So I wanted to share some details with you before we go into a Q&A. And I'll start with what we call the multifamily energy reporting. So generally, scores, labels, and ratings are a regular part of how we communicate information, like movie ratings for our children, and energy guide labels on appliances to make informed consumer decisions. So I think this label probably looks familiar to a lot of folks. If you haven't seen it before, it's indicating a few things: how much energy this appliance may use, or would it be expected to use, and then as well as the estimated yearly operating costs on a scale to indicate if it's efficient or not. And then for those of us who don't like math as much, there's also this label here, the Energy Star label, and that's an indication that that's a high-performing appliance. Similarly, in the city of Portland, we actually have whole building scores too. So there's a home energy score program that the city has been administering since 2018. 40,000 homes have actually gotten their home energy scores, and that's part of a requirement that sellers of homes have to disclose home energy scores at time of listing to inform prospective buyer decisions. So the home energy score is a measure of energy efficiency of a single family home on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the bottom, 10 being the top. But also you can see here the scores of 4, but note that the energy costs, so the projected energy costs are also provided. So that helps the homeowner get an idea of what they might expect to pay over time. And then on the right side here, it's referenced the Commercial Building Energy Reporting Program. So this program, since 2015, has required Portland's largest commercial buildings to annually report energy information to the city. And the city discloses this key information on an interactive map. And that's what you're seeing here is this map. And that's to help inform prospective buyer and tenant decisions, including carbon emissions, energy use, and Energy Star scores. To date, we've had over 180 buildings that have been certified in Portland using that same Energy Star logo that you saw in the appliance earlier. So energy scores generally help the city measure progress toward our climate goals, but we do have a data gap in that we don't have multifamily apartments and condominiums reporting to the city or disclosing information. So that's somewhat intentional because although these programs go back to the mid 2010s, at that time, we were thinking about trying to avoid unintended consequences for multifamily, especially for apartments and renters. So we intentionally chose to engage communities of color more deeply starting in 2018 on the development of equitable building decarbonization policies. And since 2022, the city has engaged broader stakeholders to refine policy concepts and complete technical and economic analyses. This year, the city is proposing energy reporting for multifamily buildings, including tenant benefits, that's informed by this years-long process. Multifamily energy reporting is not new in the United States. We're actually quite far behind. There's already 41 cities and 6 states that are implementing these types of energy reporting programs, including all the major West Coast cities except for Portland. So that's part of the reason why we're proposing too, is to catch up with these other jurisdictions. So our proposal is to expand our commercial reporting program to cover an additional 1,600 multifamily buildings that are 20,000 square feet and larger. Reporting includes key metrics that property managers use to manage their energy performance. So I mentioned the Energy Star score earlier. That's a 1 to 100 score, 1 being the bottom, 100 being the top, that indicates the energy performance of that building. And a property manager can use that data, for instance, for the commercial program year over year to inform their decisions around energy management. In addition, energy use and carbon emissions are key metrics that help inform the city whether or not we're meeting our carbon goals and also can inform property manager decisions. So our proposal then is to phase in the reporting. And we did this with commercial buildings initially back in 2015 as well, knowing that most buildings that are over 50,000 square feet typically have a property manager that is either on-site or off-site who has the capacity to provide these reports. So we would start in 2026 on Earth Day with the larger buildings, and then phase that down to 20,000 square foot and larger buildings starting in 2027, and then annually require reporting to continue. Now, because of the commercial program, we already have resources in place to help folks comply, and we'd like to expand on that program. We have secured funding to hire staff and extend the commercial energy reporting resources to multifamily property managers to simplify compliance. So these include things like guides, how-to guides. We also, the city works closely on the commercial program on coordination with utilities so that property managers can get aggregated energy meter data for their buildings without any tenant interaction at all. And then in addition to that, we have an energy reporting help desk that we have staffed since 2015. And that's a one-on-one person that you can call and actually pick up the phone and talk to and get assistance. The help desk routinely sets up individual appointments as well. And that's a great way just to get one-on-one help too, and often greatly simplifies the process. But I did want to share a little bit of how much we are estimating this may take of someone's time to comply. So I mentioned the phasing in 50,000 square feet and larger. That's about 60 plus units for just to get out of the square foot number and into how we usually think about buildings in terms of units. So 60 plus, it could be condominium or apartment units. And we estimate that it would roughly take 2 to 4 hours of staff time per building per year. If there's a decision to hire an outside contractor, we expect that would cost somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000 per building. Now, if you have a portfolio of buildings, there's a significant cost savings by completing the entire portfolio at once. Initially, there is a setup that is similar at a couple hours per year, but again, the energy reporting help desk can significantly shave that off to maybe even less than a half hour. And then for the smaller buildings where we know that there may be more help needed, it does take less time and 1 to 2 hours of staff time per building per year. And then again, the energy reporting help desk can help narrow that down to about a half-hour process. So the overall goals here, before we go into the Q&A, for the energy reporting piece is to provide a baseline for energy use and carbon emissions that can help attract outside funding. Measuring energy performance can help with that, find that funding, but also prepares property managers for the state's new building energy performance standards. And then the city can also measure the benefits of PSEP, state and federal funding in reaching our climate goals. And then another key policy goal is transparency of information. And this creates a more informed marketplace for prospective buyers and tenants, as we've seen in the commercial program. And then lastly here is to encourage improvement within the market without requiring mandatory upgrades. So this policy does not require any mandatory upgrades. However, a result of the energy reporting and disclosure of information on the map can result, folks can choose to make improvements knowing that the information will be shared. So that is the energy reporting policy. I'd like to go into questions just on this piece. There is a tenant notice component too that we'll pick up after the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Finn. So I want to again remind everybody that we're taking questions tonight through the chat, and I see we have one question in there so far. Diana, thanks for raising your hand, but if you could please put the question into the chat, that would be excellent. If you need support doing that, you can message Wing. So let me turn to Eli. Eli, a member of the BPS staff, is going to be fielding questions. So Eli, do you want to go ahead and ask Finn the first question we have there?
Absolutely. So the first question that we have is a clarification. Per building means a continuous structure, meaning that if a complex has 5 buildings at 5,000 square feet each, they will not be required to report. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, great question. That's right. The entire continuous building needs to be over 20,000 square feet.
And the next question is reporting based on actual use, and would it need to be updated as appliances and systems are replaced?
Well, that's a really great question. Yes. So for the multifamily energy reporting and the current commercial energy reporting, this would be based on actual use. So the utilities work with the city to make this data available to property managers by emailing them and using their systems to provide a simple spreadsheet that can be uploaded into a software that EPA Energy Star program runs. And that's the actual per year use for that whole building of both natural gas and electricity. Or in the rare case where you might have heating oil, that could be included as well. And just as a distinction, the home energy score program, though, is based on assets. So that's more like a review of here's the assets within there, and then it's an estimate of cost. But in this case, it would be actual energy information.
Can I add one clarification? So to Brian's question about when the reporting needs to be updated, would it be then just annually by the compliance date? So would property owners need to do anything in between kind of reporting deadlines? For example, if they, updated all of the appliances in their units?
That wouldn't be necessary. It'll show up in the following year in the energy use. And so you'll see a benefit of that investment show up within the energy use, the Energy Star score, and the carbon emissions. But one thing that we do, because as I'll show towards the end here, it's like the miles per gallon on a car. It doesn't tell the whole story. And so, especially for a lot of us who have been managing these buildings for a long time, like the city of Portland. And so there's stories within that too. And so we leave a room to share your story of the investments that you're making as well. So there's a great way to promote your energy investments. And that all goes on the map.
And then the next question is, how will the city reach out to management companies and/or HOAs to inform them of this?
Yeah, so we would use the same process that we're using for commercial programs. So the compliance would flow through the building owner, and we send out notices of the need to comply towards the end of the calendar year. And then we reach out to property manager contacts. So for every building, we like to have a primary contact. So somebody who can really email for coordination. And we work on establishing those primary contacts in the off season. So throughout the summer and the fall. And then we reach out directly to the primary contacts in February when the energy data is available and to let them know that the reporting date is coming up. And then we have reminders. We also offer extensions. There are cases for exemptions too. So we recognize that there's undue hardship or unusual circumstances that come up. And then we continue to coordinate with that primary contact until we get to a point. If we haven't received a report, then we might follow up with the building owner again with a notice of a warning of violation. And then HOAs are through the homeowner association.
Okay. One of the questions is how are we to get the energy use poll the tenant will the utilities provide? I think it was to note how will they get the energy use is the question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is something that we solved for with a commercial program to make this really efficient. Because you can imagine how hard it might be to get the energy data if you have a property and then you don't have the tenant data if they pay their own utilities. So we've solved that issue by working with utilities to aggregate the data for the whole building. And so how that works is specific to each utility, but it's generally the same too. So as a property manager, I would contact the utility by email, let them know I'm reporting, and they are prepared to receive those requests. So this just happened on Earth Day this last year. It's kind of currently happening as well with some follow-up extensions. And so the utility would then, in the case of PGE, would say, here's your data and here's the energy meters. And then you just have to confirm the energy meters. In the case of Pacific Power and Northwest Natural, they'll ask you to provide the energy meters. And so these are IDs that are on the meters themselves. So you can write down the list or you can email the list to them. And they will, and you can read it to them too on the phone if that's easier. And then they will put together this simplified spreadsheet that's basically one line that says, here's this whole building in aggregate. And that way they take out the privacy of their customer data. And then that spreadsheet uploads very easily into the EPA Energy Star software. So it's a two-step process. And if anybody has challenges with it, we do help out. And that does happen occasionally too. And we're always here to help. And we certainly consider like if there is something holding up the process to allow an extension.
Thanks so much. The next question is, can you talk more about the engagement process with the EJ communities?
Was that with the HOA communities?
Yeah, with the EJ, I think environmental justice.
Oh, EJ, thank you. Yeah, so that process really starts back in 2018 when we were updating our climate action plan. And we decided to put that process on hold. We were considering multifamily energy reporting back then too. That process was on hold because we really wanted to be thinking about equity as it was emerging as an issue and a challenge for the city. And so our goal was to have community-led engagement, and we found funding through what's called the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, along with 11 other cities, to really look at advancing racial equity while reducing carbon emissions. So through that work, two community organizations received funding to have community-led engagement. So that was the Coalition of Communities of Color and Verde. And they put together a team called Build Shift, Building Community, Shifting Power, that then worked with us to have energy cost burden workshops for low-income renters. They asked us to focus on rental housing because there's been so little investment in energy efficiency, especially when tenants pay the bills. And so that looking at the energy cost burden and then policy recommendations. And a lot of the work that comes out of that EJ engagement, you'll actually see in the second half of our presentation here.
Excellent. The next is another clarifying question. Can you clarify what number 4 means from a reporting perspective? I think that's for the tenant notice part. The presence and type of air conditioning, such as central air conditioner, window air conditioner, portable heat pump, central heat pump, etc. For example, when the heat pump was installed, year, make, model of units, etc.
Yeah, let's, we are going to get there too. So that's in the tenant notice piece. That'll be in the next presentation. So Eli, actually, Michelle, will you pick this question up when we have the next Q&A period?
Yes, and I'm scrolling through. We have quite a few questions. Is this the question about regarding the types of air conditioning?
Yeah, this is a question from Isa Watson to everyone. Could you clarify what number 4 means from a
Yes.
reporting
Let's
perspective?
please hold that for the next one and go to the next
Mhm.
question, please. Thank you.
And just to give everybody a sense of time, we can do more questions for about 8 or 9 minutes on this particular topic, and then we'll switch over to the tenant notice topic. And then if we exhaust all the questions that there are on tenant notice, we can resuscitate some of these questions as well. But just to say thank you all, and we are so excited that you have so many questions. It's fantastic.
Yeah, really, thank you all for being here and taking the time to learn more about the policy. Really appreciate it.
So the next question is about why is it taking so long to implement this, and what are the projected timelines for building emission reductions, given that we need to the climate emergency and necessity of reducing emissions by at least 50% by 2030.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing out our city climate goals. So part of the timeline was to have this deeper level of community engagement. And then we took the policy concept that came out of the build shift process that I mentioned earlier and went to broader stakeholders, including building owners and managers, and to get more feedback on the policy concept. And at that time, it was much broader, where we were considering mandatory upgrades called building performance standards to get to those 2030 targets and our long-term goal of net zero carbon by 2050. That process did go on hold, though, for several reasons. The key main reason is that the state is developing building energy performance standards, and we are working closely with the state on that development. And so we want to have complementary policies. Washington State and Seattle more recently have complementary policies, so we want to work closely. That's a key main reason. But also, I noted earlier the technical and economic analysis. We really want to understand what the impact is, not just on property owners if there were to be some type of capital investment, but also what's the potential pass-through cost to renters. So we're doing that economic analysis. That works on hold. In the meantime, it's time to catch up to where we were in 2015. We have we're better informed on multifamily energy reporting. So that's the policy that we're actually looking at moving forward today. This builds a foundation for that other work, though, and we are continuing to work on that, on the broader work to meet our goals for climate over the next several years.
Thanks, Ben. The next question is a single Energy Star report intended to cover all 3 reporting elements desired: the Energy Star score, energy use, carbon emissions?
Yes. Great question, simple answer. It's, yeah, so when the software is used, and we do have, again, guides and energy reporting help desk to help get that set up, and then it's very easy to use after that. Basically, you enter in your gross floor area for your building, and then a few details like number of units, number of bedrooms, and then the utility data. If you pay the bills for the building, you should have that ready to enter. There's a place for that. If you don't, if the tenants pay their utilities, then it's just the aggregate data from the utility in a spreadsheet that gets uploaded. And then there's a process just to connect to the city so that your data makes it to us. And so all 3 of those metrics, as well as some other data like breaking down the natural gas use, the electricity use, if you have solar panels, that can be included too, as well as those property notes I mentioned earlier where you can tell your own story.
So somewhat related to the answer that you just gave, we have a question. what is the turnaround time for energy data from the utilities?
Yeah, so for the commercial program, we have a 45-day commitment from the utilities. Generally, the utilities operate much faster than that. Initially, when the announcement comes out in February to the property managers that of compliance coming up in April, there's usually quite a few respondents at that time that just want to get it done right away. And the utilities are, kind of ahead of the game, and they're moving very quickly. And then as we approach the deadline, the utilities can get pretty busy, and so they might take a little bit longer, like 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks at times. But if for some reason a utility is not providing that data, because it's key to be able to report, we provide extensions.
Okay, and then we have two questions. And I think these would be for Andrea, that are kind of related. One is, are there penalties for not wanting to participate in the program? And are there fines for non-compliance? And if so, what are those fines?
Yeah, so great questions. This would be city code, and the code will have a section on enforcement and penalties. But Home Energy Score has that. The commercial program has that. We have to have the ability to enforce the program if city council passes it and it becomes city law. That said, that is not our intent. We are not in this to be punitive. And in all of the years that we have been running these programs, I don't think we've really ever collected a fine. Ben can correct me on that. If we have, it's been maybe 1 or 2 times. And this is really about, we take a much more carrot approach than stick. We like to work with the property owners, with the building owners, with the realtor, whoever is the key actor in the market. And we do a lot of education and outreach to make sure that most of the time these are resolvable things and people can come into compliance quite easily without us having to use that authority. So that's been our approach. I think that could be easily verified by participants in those other markets. So it's kind of a both and answer.
And I think
Eli, can we take this last question and
yes,
then
that's what I was
move
gonna say
on?
is this.
Okay.
I think our last question for this section is, you keep referring to owners as a single entity. In the case of condos, there are multiple owners. In the case of my condo, there are 337 owners. Can you clarify who's responsible for what?
Yeah, so we do run into the same issue for commercial buildings as well, where there's commercial condos. And so the condo association is who we do our outreach to, and then the owners collectively are responsible.
Fantastic. Thank you all for these excellent questions, and Eli, Vin, and Andrea for helping us get them answered. Just a reminder before we move on to the second part of our discussion on the tenant notice elements of this proposed policy. I've put the link to the map app again in the chat. So just a reminder, any official comments you want to make, and I can tell you guys are all thinking really deeply about this, so please check out that website and use it to make your formal comments on the policy. So let me now turn the floor back to Vin to show us the next presentation on the tenant notice elements.
All right, how's that looking?
Looks good.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so for the tenant notice, this is really the sharing of climate and health information to inform prospective renters before they rent. So the list of information here, the highlights, so instructions on how to access monthly energy costs per apartment unit from the utilities. So for instance, when I was renting most recently, I contacted Northwest Natural and PG through the customer service and asked for the utility history of the apartment unit that I was interested in, both in terms of the peak monthly energy costs as well as the average. And so they provided that to me and gave me an idea of how much I might also pay within that unit. So that is a system that already exists but is not well known. And so we want to highlight that for folks. So that would be through a notification We currently have notifications at the city. There's 2 notifications that are required, so it'd be adding this on. It's instructions that we would provide, and we would work with the utilities, and then property manager could refer to our information on, for instance, on a web page. And then also tenants could receive that information too. So this helps renters make informed decisions, especially for low-income renters who pay a higher portion of their income on energy bills and may not afford energy efficient apartments. Plus, resources to help low-income renters would be included in the notification. So this would be like the income qualified discount programs from utilities, weatherization services that are available, and energy assistance. There is energy bill assistance that's available to especially through the heating season, that a lot of folks just don't know about. So we want to get that word out there. This is very similar to rental energy disclosure policies in other cities. So it's been effective in Chicago and Minneapolis for many years. And because of our community-led engagement, though, here in Portland, going back to the question earlier, I think that you had asked, Ezel, Portland also includes health and resilience information that intersects with reducing carbon emissions. So this includes health risks associated with using natural gas or electric stoves, and the benefits of using ventilation. And we're referring specifically to ventilation to the outdoors. In addition to that, we would like for property owners or managers, through their managers, to indicate the type of air conditioning that is provided with a unit. So I mentioned when I was renting earlier, there were 2 window units, and I thought, oh, great, now I have air conditioning. This was post heat dome. And the property manager said, those are actually, we're leaving them here, but they don't come with this unit. So that was really helpful for me to understand that this is my responsibility to provide cooling. And something else to consider is that if you haven't had air conditioning before, now there's a new cost burden. It's the air conditioning costs. And so passive cooling can help reduce those costs. That's things like window awnings. Where I currently rent, there is a great window awning that significantly reduces the heat gain in my upstairs. And then efficient windows make a huge difference. Double pane windows, triple pane windows, and then cool roofs, which are roofs that are painted white and are very reflective, and that keeps a lot of heat from absorbing into the building. So the other thing I want to point out is that this is information that would go at notices to prospective tenants, but there's also a reporting requirement here too. So much simpler than energy reporting that I mentioned earlier. Just keeping an inventory of what type of stoves are out there, particularly natural gas stoves that have higher health risks, and also what type of cooling is available to folks. So this is a data gap that we just don't have in the city of Portland that we would like to monitor its progress over time and see if incentives like federal incentives are working. So we are proposing this applies to all duplexes and larger, that anybody who's renting an apartment, we feel like should have this information before they choose to rent the apartment. You can imagine, like, if you have, for instance, a history of asthma or somebody with asthma in your family where you're renting, that it can be helpful to know that there is a significant natural gas stove health risk if you aren't using ventilation correctly or if it's not available. So that's just one example. Another example, of course, is I mentioned earlier, the heat dome. So we want people to be prepared for the heat waves, especially for the next heat dome. And this was, the severity was unseen and not experienced in Portland previously. So there were 72 deaths in 2021. 69 of those were specific to the heat dome. And this is all from Multnomah County Health Department. 58% of those deaths occurred in rental apartments. So again, our focus is on rental apartments. And it's beyond death too. My neighbor during the heat dome had heat stroke and had to go to the emergency room. And there's 257 visits that were like that occurred in 2021. As the county notes, the lack of air conditioning was a key driver, and we have very little information on who has access to air conditioning. We have very high-level survey data that indicates about 80% of homes do, but even then, that data might be skewed to homeowners. So the purpose then of this work is to really in the policy is to really inform tenants and also help the city track progress in ways that we think will provide healthier, safer, and more resilient housing, particularly rental housing. So the timeline for this process for the policy is to begin in 2026 for prospective tenants. And then for the reporting of the inventory information is to really follow the same deadlines that we had earlier for energy reporting, make it easy for those larger buildings that are already reporting. So we're thinking Earth Day 2027 in our proposal. And then the annual inventory reporting continues, and as well as just the prospective tenants notification would be continuous the entire time. Before we jump into some questions here, just a high-level review of policy goals then is to inform renters of indoor air quality health risks and potential utility bill expectations, referring to things like natural gas stoves. Electric stoves also have a risk that can lead to higher asthma rates, the benefits of ventilation. And then when we think about potential utility bill expectations, we're really getting to reducing displacement of economically vulnerable renters. That is the outcome that we are seeking, because that high energy bill, particularly in the winter heating season, can be enough to really send someone into a downward spiral, especially if they need to take out a loan to pay that bill. So the goal then is to really increase housing security to avoid that economic spiral. And then the last here is support resilience to climate change. So we do hope that this helps prospective renters confirm whether air conditioning is provided with the apartment and if there are measures to help reduce cooling costs in the summer to really prepare for future heat waves. You can see that this data also can help prepare for the severe cold snaps that we have, like the record-breaking one we just had this last year. So to wrap up here, we are intending this information will lead to better decisions and health benefits. And also adding energy information can help us make wiser decisions. So I will go to questions again for the second piece on tenant notice.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and
oh, sorry, go ahead. So this time, let me just say, Michelle, also with BPS, is going to be fielding your questions. And I saw there were already several in there, and I just want to let everyone know we have plenty of time to get to questions. So please go ahead and enter your questions in the chat. Okay, Michelle, take it away.
yes, thank you, Marty. So we're going to go back to the first question that was asked about clarifying what number 4 means from a reporting perspective. The presence and type of air conditioning, such as central air conditioning, window air conditioner, or portable heat pump, central heat pump, or ductless heat pump, as well as passive cooling measures such as tree shade, awnings, and cool roofs. For example, when the heat pump was installed, do you need the year, make, and model of the units, for example?
Yeah, we're thinking higher level information than that kind of detail. So this would be simply an inventory of, are there air conditioners, window air conditioners, central air conditioners, heat pumps, but fixed units. So ductless heat pumps, so the ones that are like fixed into the walls, or central heat pumps where we have ducted systems that are retrofitted. So that's just the very high level what is provided in terms of air conditioning. But it helps us to identify who may need a heat pump, for instance, because we have a lot of incentives right now through the state, through federal government, but also through our own local Portland Clean Energy and Community Benefits Fund.
Thank you. The second question is some confusion about this policy applying to duplexes. I'm sorry, applying to duplexes and larger, and reference on tenant notice. Is that required for buildings of less than 20,000 square feet? And I see that you answered that already, Andrea. And it says energy reporting is only for larger buildings. The tenant notice piece applies to more buildings, duplexes and larger. I'm going to go to the next question. Where do owners managers find the information you are suggesting be provided?
Yeah, so for tenant notice, this is really to provide the information to the prospective renter So that data would not be collected and disclosed by the city. In terms of the inventory data, that would help us monitor progress and also direct resources. So that is also not intended to be disclosed, but more for programmatic funding like the PSEF program.
Thank you. When you say stove, are you referring to the heating system or a cooking system?
Oh, yeah, thank you. To clarify, I'm referring to the stovetop cooking.
I have a question from someone that manages several properties with wood burning stoves. Do you have ideas on what we would share with tenants, information that would go to tenants?
That's a great question. Generally, the Multnomah County Health Department has covered wood burning stove regulations, but I would be curious to get some comments on that through the MAP app. What your thoughts are on that, especially in the context of the current proposal.
Thank you. For ventilation, there are many legacy buildings. Sorry, my comments keep jumping around. There are many legacy buildings in this category, 2 to 6 unit buildings that have non-exterior venting systems for cooking. The average upgrade cost to vent externally can range between $8,000 to $15,000. Is there a concern about tenants pushing for these upgrades and rent increases happening?
Definitely a concern for mandatory upgrades. So that is something that we considered, and we are doing the economic analysis of that to get a better sense of how much that might cost, because ventilation outdoors can also require upgrades to energy panels for these legacy buildings. So, but for this policy, we really see this as more market information, and then as the market responds, then investments will be made. And so it really, I think it's hard to say how the market responds to this information, but over time, we would like to see progress towards ventilation to the outdoors for stoves.
Thank you. How accurate is acquiring usage information from utilities for a prior tenant? One tenant refuses to have the temperature below 75, while another tenant will only turn on the heat when it gets below 55. So how do you balance those two different usage by tenant? And the second part of that question is, what is a prospective tenant? Is that anyone walking in the door or only of those submitting a completed application? So at what point do they become a tenant, a prospective tenant?
Yeah, I'll take the second question first. So prospective tenant would be somebody who is applying for an apartment. So currently there are 2 notices that are required at the city of Portland for prospective renters. And we hope that most landlords know that they need to share that there are renters' rights that are currently existing right now. And it's when they show interest in the apartment to apply, not necessarily when they're submitting the application itself. And then the first question, it is a good point for sure that really how much we spend, it's not just the previous history, it's also what's the habit of the person who moves in. So I mentioned the home energy score earlier is an asset-based score that really looks at systems and averages to come up with potential energy costs. Even that approach has some ranges of how people actually behave or how they operate their homes and the systems within there, or how much they cook, how warm they like it, right? But either option does provide some indication. So if you were to have baseboard heating, for instance, electric baseboard heating, it's not very efficient. And we would expect to see, even if somebody is running it very lightly, that there would be a very high bill. And certainly if they're heating it to 75 degrees with baseboard heating, then the history would show, especially in that winter heating peak monthly bill, a really high bill. So there is some subjectivity to it, but we think that more information is better than none at all. And the previous tenant history, I think, is the most accessible for folks to understand what that actually means. And that's why I appreciate the utilities sharing that information right now. It's all of them have the practice for folks that it's available right now, but it's not widely used. So we really want to highlight it so people know.
Thank you. The next question. Are there any other jurisdictions doing this type of disclosure and notice? Are you talking with state policymakers about this as well? Maybe this could help with determining the impact of these interventions.
Yeah, so we are working closely with state policymakers in terms of the legislation that passes, like the most recent House Bill 3409, which has building performance standards at a statewide level. And that's why the idea of having mandatory upgrades is on hold right now, because we want to coordinate with the state. And the state's policy might meet our goals. And so this one way to measure that is to have this kind of foundational baseline data of energy reporting. Then the other, were there two questions in there, Michelle? Can you help me out here?
No, I think you answered the two questions. It was basically about, are we talking with other state policymakers about this as well? Where are we gathering the data from? We can move to the next question. Why is there a 1.5 year delay for this rather simple policy? Why wouldn't we start tenant notices in 2025?
That's a great question. We like to have people prepared for what's coming. And so if we were to start, actually, when we were looking at this policy last year, we did have 2025 in there. So I think now that we're kind of continuing to work on the policy, and now we're just putting out for public comment, it's June. I think we like to have some prep time to inform, especially the property managers, of what the requirements are, have more clarity, have more information sessions, work with our partners within the community, but also within the multifamily property industry to answer any questions and have as much clarity as possible before any requirements start.
And just a quick
Thank you.
time check. I think we have room for two to three more questions. And I know, Michelle, we've got a couple in here right now that are kind of tactical, logistical from William that I think would be important to get to. Nope, William, they're coming right now.
I'm seeing, thank you, Tim Lynch, for responding about the wood stove question. We'll get comments from the county on this too, based on consideration.
I'm struggling a little bit with my scrolling through these. Is that regarding the inventory? Will there be a website that provides the information to the city?
I think I answered that.
I think
we are
okay.
Okay, and then the second one was regarding the tenant notice. Where can property owners get the information? For example, possible hazards for gas and electric stove usage, low income energy help that they can give to prospective tenants, and will the city be providing pamphlets or other documents that property owners can give to prospective tenants?
Yeah, so for that data, we would be collecting that data so that the property manager doesn't have to seek it out themselves, and also for consistency within the marketplace. So we would work with Multnomah County Health Department for natural gas stove and electric stove health risks specifically, and the benefits of ventilation and how to properly operate ventilation too. And so that kind of information would be posted by the city on a web page, but also I like the idea of providing pamphlets. And so as we go into this public comment period, I think that's a great comment. Like, what is your preference to receive that information to relay to prospective tenants? Also the low income, I'm seeing the low income energy information. So that does exist right now. And so we would be pointing to existing resources at the state and utility level.
I also just want to say I scrolled up and there's a comment that says, I'm happy to connect with the right folks at the county, including our program that can replace a wood stove. with a heat pump at no cost for low-income households. And if you don't mind, I share that the email address. It's tim.j.lynch, Lynch, at multco.us. That's multco.us for replacing wood stoves with heat pumps for low-income folks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tim, for volunteering that. I'm going to go ahead and put one more time the link to the MAP app for anybody who is interested in carrying this on one step further and making some official comments to the city. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been absolutely incredible. We really appreciate all your questions. And so to close us out, oh, and thank you, Vin, for your very clear and concise presentations. Much appreciated. So I'd like to just turn the floor back to Andrea to tell us a little bit about next steps.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks everyone for the questions. I do want to say that the intent here by engaging all of you is to hear how your business, if your property managers or owners, how your business operations work, how we can make this the most streamlined and easy way for you to comply. We know government has a reputation for not being friendly or not being user-centered. This team is not oriented like that, and we very much want to design something that will work and will cause the least amount of administrative burden for y'all. Next steps, we have another twin meeting to this tomorrow afternoon for people who can't make it tonight. And then the public comment period is open through June 14th, after which we will gather all of which I can tell is going to be a lot of really deep and thoughtful feedback. We will take all of that into consideration and be working on changes to the policy proposal. And we will evaluate where we are after the public comment period closes. So again, thank you for your time at 6:56. So Marty, unless there's anything else, we can.
I think we can let everybody have the rest of their nights.
Okay. Good night, all. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.